like the night before, and just like, it always happens to me with the topics that I know the most and have the most to say about. It's like, where do I start? I'm sitting there at like 6 a.m. and like I don't have a single slide. So they're not the most polished slides, but I don't think that really matters. It's gonna be fun. Do you want me to cut it short at 3:30 or go for half an hour, James? Do whatever.
Well, go for half an hour.
Okay.
You could go for almost a full hour.
Oh boy, sweet, yay, awesome. Then we can talk about what you guys have to deal with on-call. Because the thing about on-call is it is context all the way down. If anybody gives you rules to fix your on-call, they're going to be wrong. They're super wrong. It is way more art than science, and there is no way to avoid the fact that you have to think about it and understand things. So, the theme of this entire day is sustainability, which I love. And when I think about sustainability, my mind immediately goes to software engineering, because I feel like for as much as we talk about development, we should call it maintenancers. Like, you can basically round down to 0 the amount of greenfield development that we usefully do. It takes 0 time and energy to develop software. Congratulations. It's all in the maintenance, no matter what role you have. So, on-call is the first and greatest weapon in your arsenal. It is the sharpest fork in the drawer. It is my first question whenever anybody asks me a question about unfucking their culture. I'll be like, who is on call? So, let's start. My name is Charity. I am, as James said, co-founder and reluctant CEO of a startup called Honeycomb, which is not a monitoring company, by the way. I am from ops, which is why this is how I feel about software. And I also have a book coming out. If you happen to have this book, I have brought unicorn stickers to fix the cover. See me afterwards. You can't have a mythical creatures with O'Reilly books. Did you know that? Fucking bullshit. So, yet another on-call talk. So, my one hesitation about talking about this is like, I'm just sick. I am sick and tired of hearing people talk about on-call and how awful it is and how it ruins their life and how abused they are and like, yes, absolutely, I agree, totally. But like, I've heard it. I've heard the story before. I've been living it for quite some time. It's cool. Like, we all understand. Like, and I'm not devaluing your feelings. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But I do want to put what I feel is a slightly more productive spin on it, now that we're all kind of on the same page about the problem. Because honestly, I'm going around, and a lot of you are going around, saying over and over to people that the number one way to modernize your infrastructure and your teams, to adopt DevOps and align incentives, is to put your software engineers on call, right? And they go, whoa. You know, I don't mind owning my software, but getting paged about it, that's a step too far. I'm like, I get it. I'm over 30. I don't like getting woken up in the middle of the night anymore either. And ops has a terrible history here of masochism, just outright, abusing ourselves and not valuing our own time. And you cannot ask someone else to value your time if you don't value it yourself, right? So the solution is not make everybody as miserable and sleep deprived as ops has historically been. The solution is we fix it together. You should not feel bad about asking someone to be on call. If you do, that's a sign that you have work to do on that side, right? You shouldn't feel bad. It is an honor and a privilege to be an extremely highly paid engineer supporting software that you fucking believe in. We should make that vision possible. And I have been on call since I was 17. It's over half my life. I feel like this gives me moral credibility. And I have created on-call rotations, I've participated in them, I have shook my fist at them, I've hated them, I've been sleep deprived, all these things. But I'm not telling you a fantasy or a fairy tale that is not achievable, because I've lived this before. I've joined teams that were terrible, and I've lived through the transformation that other people were driving that made them beautiful. I have personally designed and ran on-call rotations that people called afterwards the most valuable learning experiences of their careers. I have had people who were not on my team beg to join the on-call rotation. They were special people, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it, and it really, I hate seeing people burn out at tech. That talk, I was listening to it from back there. That was brilliant on burnout. I hate seeing people burn out at tech. I hate seeing women quit especially. And I'm not blaming the victim, but I do want to say, you have agency. You have more agency than you probably realize, or you probably feel like. Certainly when things are shitty and you're tired, it can be hard to really internalize it and operate from a place of like confidence and strength in your agency, but you have it. Yes, tech is sexist and exhausting, but the fucking world is sexist and exhausting. Where the fuck do you think you're gonna go? At least we're highly paid. We're expected to have a creative, this is not a bad gig. We should be able to make this work, right? Are you with me? Thank you. Does not have to be that bad. And if it is that bad, I believe you, ping me, I'll help you find a new job. There are a gazillion people out there who would love to hire you. Your manager should be terrified that you will walk if they don't make it better. If you are a manager, you should be terrified people will walk. Because they should. An alternate framing. Instead of this being a miserable, terrible thing that's happening to you, you're an ER doctor. People need you, right? You build things that matter. It is your responsibility and your privilege to show up and do things that matter every day. Pick your favorite metaphor. There's a ton of them. So here's a question that, just to ask yourself. If I came up and said, "Why are you on call?" What would you say? What would you say? Why are you on call? Any of you? God damn it. Who's on call? James, are you on call? Why are you on call? Why? Raise your hands if you're on call, in an on-call rotation. Thank you, thank you. Why are you in an on-call rotation? That's a great answer. So I'm going to talk about a few different perspectives in this talk. Your perspective, the manager's perspective, the IC's perspective. But one that I never hear mentioned is your significant other's perspectives. How do they feel about you being on call? What? They flushed your pager. I love it. Not passive aggressive. You got a winner. If I asked your significant other why you're on call, what would she say? Significant other, is that you? What would you say? Why is he on call?
The buck stops here.
The buck stops?
The buck stops here. He was the CTO.
Nice. That's a good one. Sorry? Stop writing shit software. Oh, I love it. So I have overheard partners of engineers occasionally discussing our lives, let's say. And it's often not very flattering, complimentary, delighted, they're on call, no life for us. There was a guy who tweeted at me yesterday, he's like, "I'm not on call anymore, now I get to play with my kids sometimes." That's terrible. Because significant others can often see us more clearly than we see ourselves, especially in the dark moments. And I encourage all managers to occasionally check in with your employees' significant others. How is it really at home? If you feel comfortable doing that, I tend to work in very informal environments where we're all friends outside work, and so it's not, like I said, everything's contextual, right? Maybe not if you're at a bank. My significant other, Rebecca, I would get paged a lot about MongoDB. And at some point after a year or two at Parse, I'd get paged in the middle of the night. She'd roll over and say, "Are the indexes broken again?" It was the cutest fucking thing. She had a few of these phrases memorized, and I'd have my friends over. I'd get paged, and she'd just like look up wide-eyed. She'd be like, is replication broken again? So fucking cute. She's very supportive, though, and she super understands that it's not a thing that I resent. Usually, when I do, there's something wrong with it. It's not a thing that I super enjoy, but I would miss it if I didn't have it. And in fact, as a manager, I've taken myself out of the rotation sometimes for reasons, which we'll discuss. And it's like I have a limb that's missing. I have to work really hard to understand how things really are for our customers, right? I have to add back process to replace this thing that used to just feel like part of me, just an intuition, just that it was there. Also, being on call is really almost impossible if you don't have their support, so it's worth explaining to them. Story time. Oh, right, I was going to tell a story. So I worked at Linden Lab many years ago when I was but a puppy. And I was the second ops person hired for Second Life, and the way that we handled on-call was this. This is in the counterexample bucket. We all got paged. There were 3 or 4 of us. We all got paged every single time anything broke. Nagios paged us. We would all log into IRC and type a single number to indicate how many drinks we had had. And the person with the lowest number had to solve the problem. This created some perverse incentives. Nevertheless, we were all in it, and until the night when we logged in and it went 8, 9, 8, ... question mark? And we went, oh, shit. Seth's like, all right, it's MySQL. He's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to type in the command into the root shell, but not press enter. I will copy it into IRC. You all read it, give me 2 thumbs up, and then I'll hit enter. I will then paste the output, and we'll all read it. Oh, we were sober by the time that was over. Anyway, that was when we decided, all right, it's time for rotation. Anyway. So, some people talk about on-call like it's optional, and I've thought about this a lot. Is it? I don't think it is. I believe that it is part of the ecosystem of software engineering in the same way that changing a baby's diapers is part of the ecosystem of growing up. I think it is an absolutely necessary and critical part of a functional ecosystem, provided that you have more than one person working on a product, and that you care about quality in any way, shape, or form, both of which are not necessarily true. And by the way, quality is hard. It's annoying. If you don't have to care about it, I suggest not caring about it. If you can figure out a way to stop having these problems, great, I'm all ears. But as far as I can tell, the maintenance, quote unquote, the fixing, the iterating, the listening to feedback, the turning around things that are hurting your customers now, or fixing a bug that takes an hour or 2 to fix, there's a lot of them. Either they never get done, or they disproportionately fall on the people who are most willing to do them, which is not fair. Or some other method is selected, none of which perform the role that a rotation does, which is it's a round-robin record, right? It makes sure that everyone can basically deal with whatever comes up after a while, which is about the people side of resiliency, right? I was advising a woman engineer last week who was like, well, I'm the only one who works on front-end stuff, and I don't mind it, but it'd be nice if other people do it, but they say they don't know how and stuff. And we were just like, it is your responsibility as a leader in this company to make sure that you are not the only person who knows how to do front-end stuff. I know you don't mind doing it. That's not the point. Even if you love doing it, not the point. You need to have a team that can work on the entire code base. What happens if you're gone? What happens if, you need a code review that is actually, meaningful? Like, this is table stakes. And hopefully I don't even need to say that, but I keep finding that I do. On-call rotations are the primary mechanism by which most teams can address this problem. Sustainability. We load balance and distribute our knowledge and experience. Large things go into long-term planning. Like our process is we have quarterly planning where we take our business goals and translate them into technical goals. Anything that is the size of an interval, 2 weeks or less, we handle by the engine managers and the engineers on the ground. And a day or less gets handled by the on-call rotation. On-call is a relentlessly human scale process, like I was saying at the start. Everything is contextual, everything is contingent. I feel like every time the composition of your team changes, your on-call rotation should be rethought and perhaps changed. I like the idea of shipping many small changes and tweaks and iterations to your schedule to keep people sharp, to keep them engaged, to keep trying. It's never perfect, right? It can always be better. And I'm not talking like huge changes, but like things are stale sometimes, and maybe the way you are doing things is not the best way. What is out of scope? What is not? Which brings me to the first tip, which is that every rotation needs an owner. Oh, and I tried to kind of code these. Like, these are all of these stakeholders in this. And I tried to be like, here are the ones that each person cares about. But that's what I was doing while I was walking up here, so I guess towards the end it's not exactly accurate. This is how we make it sustainable for all of these stakeholders. So, and number one is just, like, if there is no owner for a rotation, usually it's a manager. It doesn't have to be. It can be a senior engineer, somebody who just really... a thing I often will do is someone who wants to be on the manager track, someone who's an IC but interested in becoming a manager, give them the fucking rotation to manage. That's herding sheep. It's not super fun. It gives them a taste of the good and the bad of people problems. It's really annoying when you've been doing it for a long time, and it's really fun for people who it's their first time. But if it isn't someone's job, it's no one's job, or everyone's job, which means it's no one's job. And that just doesn't work. And the first thing that I must underline is, obviously you have an SLA budget, right? And it's important, I think, to emphasize, you have a budget, use it. If you haven't used your downtime, you're not taking enough risks. Use it, it's fun, try it. Secondly, every time someone gets woken up, your person who's in charge of the rotation should know, like within a day. It should never happen that someone gets woken up in the middle of the night and no one notices. You know, in a mature and stable system, I would recommend post-morteming every single time. It can be a quick, 10, 15 minute, but like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen? How do we make this resilient? Was this a flap? Nothing burns people out faster than flaps. Cool, we can fix those if we pay attention to it. This should be your top priority. I think that the human side of not getting woken up is often higher priority than the technical SLAs. By which I do not mean sleep through your pager. I just mean that both customer goodwill and team goodwill can get burned through, and in my experience, team goodwill usually goes faster, which ultimately contributes to the goodwill of your customers if you can't retain people. Graph it. Graph it over time. Notice when it's going up. Code is liability. The best code in the world is no code at all. The second best code is code that someone else writes and maintains, you can read, and you have the benefit of using. And lots of other people are using it, so they're hardening it for you. And the third best code is literally anything else. The best senior engineers that I've ever worked with are the ones who work the hardest not to have to write anything new, because they know how costly it is. Like to harden it. But let's say that you have, against all better judgment, written some code. It happens to the best of us. Your services need owners. They do not need operators. And I say this as someone who very much hails from the operations engineering side of the house and has immense respect for operations engineering done well. I love that shit. And it's never going away. But increasingly, ops lives on the other side of an API from you. Most of the people who do operations for you right now are not employed by you. And the trend towards, engineering cycles are the scarcest resource in your world. And the trend towards spending them only on your core differentiators is a good one. Owning something means, it's a lot like giving birth, honestly. You're legally responsible for that little shit for almost 2 decades. Right? Doesn't matter if it was a one-night stand. You still take the DNA test. That commit belongs to you. Another parallel with parenting. I'm not a parent. Well, I feel like I am, having given birth to a startup, but it really does take a village, right? It's too much work, too much responsibility to shepherd it alone. It's too all-consuming. It will burn you out until you want to drown that little shit in the bathtub. Babies, by the way, are engineered by evolution to be too cute for you to want to kill them. Your code is not. Taking the metaphor just a stretch too far, you could even say that developers are the absentee fathers of software development. They shoot their sperm over the wall, just like ops try. Sorry, that was a little too far. Story time. Shy, I don't remember what story I was going to tell. Oh well. Not enough notes. On to the next one. Signal that you value the work. Also, P.S., actually value the work. That helps. You know how when there's a really hard problem, management execs, they will put their best people on the job? You notice how they never actually do that for this shit? They're just like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so's time is too valuable. Let's see if noob number 3 can do this. And they wonder why it turns into a mess that never gets cleaned up, right? Sometimes you want to put your best people on. If there is a problem that is lingering, that is waking people up for days or weeks, and you're not sure why, but you just can't get a handle on it, God, put your best person on it, you know? Put new eyes on it. Sometimes teams who practice like ownership of areas will get so tied to that area of ownership that it's like only this person is allowed to fix these problems in RabbitMQ, you know? And it's like, get some fresh eyes. And it shows that you value it. Never promote someone to a senior engineer unless they can own their shit. Signal in your interview process. Tell them what to expect. This is how we handle on call. These are the expectations for the role. This is what we believe makes a senior engineer, right? You want the right people to join you. You don't want to be so desperate to hire someone, whether they're like aligned with you or not. Because your culture is like just as important for you to guard as that elusive, mysterious technical bar people are always talking about. You can teach people skills. You can't teach them to not be a dick and to share your philosophy. And you'll note that a lot of these things do not necessarily require being paged in the middle of the night. In fact, as much as possible should not page you in the middle of the night. But you already know this, surely. I also think it's really important to be very outcome-oriented, not to micromanage how people are doing these things. And one great signal that you value the work is that you do it yourself, that you participate to some extent, and that you model the types of behavior like when someone gets woken up in the middle of the night. Tell them, please don't come in the morning. Sleep. Don't set your alarm. I'll take your pager. This is the best reason, by the way, for managers to take themselves out of the pager rotation so that they can be there to pinch hit any fucking time. Any day that someone didn't get a good night's sleep. Any week that someone needs to go on vacation and it's not easy to rejigger everyone's, you can just step in there. And it's great. And it shows that you believe in that work. People really appreciate it. Pay for it, too. Capitalist society. As you grow, often the right thing to do is to split and add more rotations. Because the optimal pager rotation that does the week, each person takes a week, is 5 to 8 people. Longer than that, like after 8 weeks, you don't actually remember what's going on in your system. Less than 5, and that's just too much. More than once a month is too much. So you split, like a cell. You subdivide. We're in the process right now of splitting from having just one engineering pager rotation to having 2, one of which is like, website bugs and like a lot of support requests and CSS, and the other, which is infrastructure and which gets paged in the middle of the night. And we want to maintain it's not an option to be in a rotation or not, but it is an option which rotation to be in, because I trust my people to look and see where they're needed and compare that with their interests and what they're interested in learning about. And I like the idea as we grow of having more rotations and inviting people to travel around, I don't care if you're a database engineer, try the website rotation for a while, you'll get support, it'll be a nice change. This shit can be really fun. One thing that, I was going to tell, I didn't get the pictures of the TR of technical debt. One thing that I did at Parse that was really super fun was our most senior engineer refactored this ginormous, hairy pot of terribleness that was left over after we wrote the API from Ruby to Go. And everyone was so grateful to him. So I bought a tiara, a wedding tiara off of Amazon, and in our all-hands meeting, I crowned him with the tiara of technical debt. And I told him it was his until he was impressed with someone and to pass them on then. And it just became this self-fulfilling thing where they would pass on the tiara of technical debt whenever did something amazing, right? Because everyone notices features. People don't notice this submerged shit that affects them every day that they didn't even maybe realize was fixable. So it's your job as a manager to pay attention to it and surface it and call it out. Signs that something is bad, something is broken in pagerland. When people dread it, nobody should dread this, you know? Maybe you can't go camping for a week. I don't think I've ever changed one of my normal plans unless something was on fire, you know? Go to a movie. The company should pay for, obviously a laptop, a MiFi device. You should be able to take it with you and have a reasonable expectation of not getting paged, right? You're not at work. You should not get paged unless the world is on fire. None of these things should happen. Now, I love gallows humor a lot, but it should not have that edge, that really bitter edge of, you know what I'm talking about. Shouldn't get that bad. Care more about less. And this is the essence of distributed systems, right? And you're all distributed systems engineers now. Congratulations. Ask for more money. And the key wisdom of distributed systems is that your system is never up. There are so many catastrophic states right now that you don't know about, or maybe you do, or you kind of know about, but not enough to actually fix it. There's a lot of shit. Like, you should not sleep well at night. Except you should sleep well at night. It's fine. We can absorb so much failure before it actually matters. Prioritize ruthlessly. Make that critical path as narrow and as decoupled from all of the Elasticsearch and Redis instances that you can. Lower your standards. Sorry. Reasonably. I feel that, so one of the reasons that I am building Honeycomb is because I experienced the shift from monolith to microservices effectively. And the way that our past monitoring and learning practices do not take us, they do not go with us, they do not grow with us, they don't work. You need a much more debugging and iterative approach. So we built Honeycomb, and I believe that when you have something like Honeycomb, or something that allows you to debug any unknown quickly, you can have drastically fewer paging alerts, like 4. Requests per second, latency, errors, maybe saturation, and some end-to-end checks that traverse your critical path around the stuff that makes you money. And that's it. Everything else can get shunted into the second pipeline, the one that you deal with during the day. It works. Model a compassionate culture. Signs of goodness, signs that you're doing it right. People don't get woken up more than once, twice a week. People don't keep score. People volunteer to cover for each other. Sometimes I'll also pair people when they're on call, so you have a primary and secondary. And only the primary gets paged unless it's been 30 minutes, it fails over to secondary. Just so they have a buddy, if they're like, oh God, I can't take my laptop, I gotta run to the store, can you cover with me for an hour or two or a day? It's just nice to have a buddy, or for bringing new people up to speed. Sometimes I will pair a front end and a back end person together if it's, there's lots of stuff that you can do. Like I said, play around with it. There are no laws. Get your senior people on your side and talk about the behavior that you need them to help you model for everyone else, because people don't really listen to your words. They watch what you do. Never page new parents. Another thing we did at Parse, we kept having people who would have kids. And it was just a blanket expectation. You don't page them. Until the kid is weaned and sleeping through the night, you don't fucking page them. You should not have more than one thing waking you up in the middle of the night. That's just cruel. I think that we have a lot of knobs at our disposal in terms of incentives and motivations. We shouldn't have to force people to do this. It should be something that they opt into. Sometimes you can't, I get that. And honestly, some people just cannot carry a pager. There's only been like 1 or 2 of them over the course of my career. Because everybody feels like they can't, they feel unequipped, so you need them to try for a while. There was this one guy my age, that I was managing who, he tried, he really tried, and he wanted to do it. But he had such anxiety issues, just like so much anxiety. He was wound so tight, and you could just tell he couldn't get to sleep because he was scared he wasn't going to wake up if the pager went off. He couldn't get to sleep. If he got woken up, he'd just be up all night. His wife hated me. Oh my God. So I took him out, and he resisted it. But it's not like he wasn't in the rotation. I just put him in a different one. He had to clean up all the test infrastructure. Everybody was like, oh God, this is amazing, thank you. They were so stoked to have him out of the rotation and doing something else instead, right? I mean, there's enough pain to go around. Doesn't all have to be getting paid in the middle of the night. And some people don't mind. Some people really don't mind. I fall asleep at the drop of a hat. I fall asleep anywhere, anytime. It does not bother me. Some people just can't, and that's fine, right? There's probably a place for them. Don't be afraid to ask for hard things. People fucking want to be asked to step up and do amazing things with you, right? It is so awesome to feel that someone has that much confidence in you, that you can do something hard, if you're supporting them. There's a big difference between that and asking for the same fucking boring thing over and over. Do not ask for that. But I see sometimes people stepping away from the idea that they should ever push their teams at all. And that's not what I'm saying. No, you support them so that they can do great things, so that they can grow and change and do things that they've never been able to do before, but with the support of you and the team. People crave that. That's what keeps them coming back and wanting to work with you again and again, because everybody wants to improve, right? Everybody wants, I was at Linden Lab, I was 23, and I got to build out this globally distributed team of tier 1. Obviously, well, I was in no way qualified to do this at all. I was so just proud and grateful that I was asked, and I tried my ass off, and it worked fine, and I leveled up. And I will always look back at that as one of the highlights of my career and just an amazing thing that happened. People want this. Just don't do that. One of these things burns people out, and the other one inspires them. You can probably guess which is which. Have you guys read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz? One of the only business-y-ish books that I have ever read and enjoyed, and I love it. And from Andreessen Horowitz, he tells some stories about the things that he put his teams through, and I'm just like, wow. And yet, he talks about, similar to the reason that people have always looked at the ops team that I'm in, wow, I wish we were as cohesive as the ops team. And it's guys, that's because of our shared pain. Because we go to war together. We were a band of brothers, so to speak. And it does. It creates cohesion. It creates a sense of solidarity that you can use. This is the thing that I've been, and I'm almost done, I promise. This is the thing that I've been hearing a lot from people as I'm traveling around giving them demos. People are they're like, man, we basically let our engineering teams use whatever they want to use. So now we use everything. And they're like, oh, how do we get ourselves out of this? And I'm like, okay, first of all, congratulations. These are high-performing teams. You have done kind of the right thing. It's definitely the right side to err on, not the button down, you can use Oracle and PHP and that's it, right? That's why you will get a better category of engineer if you let them do interesting things, but obviously it's not sustainable. And the right thing to do here is to create a golden path. These are the defaults. If you don't have a goddamn good reason to choose something else, here are the supported solutions, right? Here's the language that we package. Here's the operating system. Here, provide them with the right things to do by default and support those things. And tell them that they can use whatever else they want, but they will be supporting those things, period. You will never get woken up for those things. I find that works well. This is the the vision that I feel like we're working towards. This is a better way. Your on-call rotation, instead of being like a sentence of death, or like something you're doomed to once every 6 weeks that you have to like, life stops. It can be something that you kind of sort of look forward to sometimes. It's a sanctioned break in the routine. It's a time that's a little bit different, just like Sunday's a different day of the week, right? When all those stupid little things that have been bugging you, but you don't have time to do because you're so focused on your project work and you've got your sprint and your interval and all this. It is the sanctioned time to do something about the things that bother you, or to make someone on your team just like delighted that you fixed something for them. It's a chance to really get your finger on the pulse of how your users feel. It is a chance to just do something different. A break in the routine is nice. When you're interviewing someplace, ask questions about their on-call culture. Ask what the expectations are. Along with, how do you make technical decisions? Who participates in it? Is it optional? Does this fit my life? I feel like this is a really big, in the same way that like the Marines, I think, have the strongest culture of all of the armed services. I don't know why I'm using all these martial metaphors. Well, I do. Life is a battlefield. Whatever. Like, this is possible. You need to guard your culture and the structure and the reward systems and the incentives cautiously. But like, this opens up a lot of space for freedom and innovation. It's almost like having a little mini hack week of your own. And like I said, you bear a great responsibility to notice when people are being woken up, when their out of work hours are being impacted, when the technical debt is going like this. And you, if you're a manager, you need to lobby aggressively to your executive team that it is all hands on deck. It is not time to ship more features. It is time to pay this down. It is time to fix the things that are hurting your humans, because it is hurting them. It is hurting them. If it's hurting them, it's hurting the team, it's hurting the company, it's hurting everyone. So it matters. They need an advocate. Thank you.